Okay, so hello and welcome to this case study session with Cognify, who we are delighted to have as an event partner with the Transport Innovation Summit. I'm Craig Waters, the editor of Global Railway Review, and joining me now is Mark Grisdale, Sales Manager at Cognify, who will be presenting all about minimising the impact of incidents in rail and mass transit. I'm sure you'll find his presentation really interesting, and afterwards Mark will spend some time answering some of your audience questions. So if you want Mark to expand on anything or you have a pressing question to ask him, please use the questions tab on the platform. So Mark, it's now over to you, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much, Craig, for the introduction. Just to correct something, this is not going to be a case study. This is going to be a kind of overview of managing incidents for rail and mass transit. But thank you very much for joining me. Before we start, I'd like to just run a short poll. There are two questions. If you go into your polls box on your screen, you should find two questions there. If you could just answer those for me, and then we'll have a look at the results and we can get started. So they're in your polls box on your screen. And with a bit of luck, in a second, Craig will give me your answers.
Let's just leave it a couple more minutes. I can see the results changing, so let's leave it a few more moments. Okay, so let's have a look. So the first poll that we have is how many of you are looking to improve the management of incidents in your organisation. Mark, we've got 70 or now 67% of people are saying yes to that question. How does that sound to you? Is that what you're expecting?
That's good. I'm talking to the right crowd.
Good. And the second question for the poll is, does your organisation have to manage incidents as part of your operation? And for this one, we've got 80% are saying yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Craig.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to run through a quick overview of Cognify, who we are, what we do, and then talk about some of the challenges the rail and mass transport sector faces in dealing with incidents, understanding what an incident comprises of and how it can affect your organisation, how Cognify deal with managing incidents and what we try to do to improve outcomes for our customers. And I can talk to you about a couple of customer situations. Craig mentioned at the start that I'll try and answer any questions at the end. If any of your questions are slightly more in depth, my calendar's online, so very, very happy to answer some of the more in-depth questions later on, or talk about some of our customers in a little bit more detail than I'm able to in the time given for this. I would also like to add that we've got an overview of the solution itself at 1:45 today. So if anybody would like a look at that, it will be available, and we'll make it available later in the week for anybody that wants to have a more of a detailed view. So who are Cognify? We are a provider of incident management solutions. We have about 310 employees. It is a global operation. Head office is actually in the US, and our R&D centers in Israel, but we operate pretty much all over the world, and most of our customers a lot of our customers are international in their presence and require international support. We sell every year about 250,000 video channels, so that's quite a big part of our portfolio on the kind of camera side, and we work with about 600 technology partners. They will be camera manufacturers, sensor manufacturers, SIs, and kind of other technology providers who operate in the rail sector, Cognify needs to integrate pretty heavily with most of our customers' legacy systems. So enable to do that, we do need to have lots and lots of partnerships with technology providers to this sector. A little bit about Cognify. Some of you will know of us from the past. We grew out of an organization called Nice Systems, and Nice acquired an organization called Orsus. Excuse me, I'm just going to put my specs on. In 2009, and grew that as a division of Nice, and that was acquired in 2015 by Battery, and Battery have gone on to consolidate the business with the acquisition of another organization called CTEC to consolidate the business. So we are involved entirely now in providing incident management platforms and incident management VCR right across the sectors. I would also add that Cognify is focused on a number of key sectors now for investment for us in products, and rail is most certainly one of them. So public transport in the media. There's quite a lot of media attention paid to public transport. Unfortunately, most of it tends to be the negative stuff. So there's concerns raised in the travelling public because of that. So there's things talked about with regard to passenger safety, ongoing kind of cleanup of the infrastructure state for rail and mass transport, and also fatalities. So this is an area where there are various levels of incident and quite a lot of attention from the press, most of it reflecting quite negatively in travelling customers' perceptions. Bad things happen in all walks of life. We call them kind of incidents in our organisation, and they tend to be in kind of right across the platform of their complexity and size. So from routine ones like graffiti and vandalism, theft, and people on the track, which accounts for a huge amount of disruption to rail operators, I know, to more serious ones. Bridges collapsing, terrorist attacks, which unfortunately are on the increase, and train accidents. In many cases, people have got well-documented crisis responses to the kind of one-off, very, very serious incidents. But it's the kind of smaller stuff where a lot of the people that we talk to don't have a huge amount of control over those incidents, and they are hugely time consuming. Of course, in the last few months, this has all got an awful lot more complicated because there are new things to manage, which nobody foresaw when they were doing their planning last year, I expect. But these are things which have just complicated the whole landscape, and particularly their effect on passenger trust. And how do you manage all of these things while being financially viable with social distancing going on and the obligations you've got to provide health check information to the authorities? So yet again, another layer of complexity to add into the mix already of managing incidents across the rail network. As I mentioned on a previous slide, there's a whole scale of incidents that happen, from very, very serious ones, which tend to be hugely difficult to deal with from a business interruption point of view. They can also lead to things like fines and reputation risk. Fortunately, they don't happen very often. To routine incidents, so people on the track, delays, mechanical problems, animals on the track, etc., which just lower the operating efficiency of the operation, increasing the rising costs, and they tend to have negative customer satisfaction. It's increasingly the case as well because of the speed of social media. They do cause some reputational damage, because quite often the travelling public is aware of the incident, if it's a small one, often before the rail operator itself, and knowing, when this incident is going to be cleared up and dealt with. So signs that things are not working very well. This is a situation we often see when we go into incident rooms for the first time. Lots and lots of yellow stickies around incident manager screens, paper-based files everywhere. There's a mix of kind of paper-based systems and legacy systems which people are drawing their information and guidance from, and a huge reliance on people's individual knowledge and their domain knowledge of the particular stretches of track or infrastructure to complete the management of processes. We also noticed that in order to clear up an incident, there's a lack of critical information available to incident managers at any particular time. And that is a challenge which often relies on people and their personal networks to transmit that information. And often there's no process guidance. So how do we improve our processes? How do we enforce the processes so we do things consistently is something that we often encounter. And of course, it's getting worse with complexity rising, the amount of technology that's available and used across the networks is rising. The management of these incidents is getting more difficult. So what does this lead to? It leads to slower responses. It leads to slower responses in notifying everybody that's involved with an incident, notifying everybody that needs to be involved in clearing up an incident, and slower responses to report back to the regulatory bodies about what was done with a particular incident, what were the lessons learned, and what are the kind of KPIs going forward. It can potentially compromise your security across the network. It can potentially damage your reputation. It can certainly increase your risks and ongoing costs. And occasionally it does lead to further loss of life. So what matters to most organizations is how you deal with incidents. Incidents tend to follow a certain cycle. So there's a detection of an incident from, that may be a sensor, it may be a camera, it may be a notification from the traveling public or a train driver. So detecting of it, then there's the intake of the incident into your ongoing systems, acting on that incident to clear it up, and then the review of that incident, hopefully for ongoing improvement purposes. So what are we trying to do? What does Cognify try to do with our customers here? What we're trying to do is help them shorten the incident cycle. So one of the things we try to do as quickly as possible is help our customers understand what it is they're taking on as soon as possible, and then improve the orchestration of that incident through its life cycle to clear up and review. So ultimately, this is what we endeavor to do, and this is what most of our customers aspire to do. So detect and act on the incident quicker, to enrich the information which an incident manager has, to broadcast that information to all interested parties so that they can deal with the incident, to help manage the incident through to its completion, and then have a basis for analysing and improving and reviewing that incident with external bodies and with business improvement facilities through the organisation. So what does that mean? Detecting incidents, some of this will be familiar to you now. If 80% of you are managing incidents currently, some of this will be, we were aware of these things. So these things tend to get triggered by video, access points, fire detection, Internet of Things detectors, and increasingly from calls from member of the public and other people calling in to report incidents. we need to give those things some context. Where are they on a map? What reference data do we have? What social media are they using, and what's the knock-on effect of that? And then by acting on that. So there are an awful lot of people involved with the managing of an incident. Executives and organizations generally want to know. External bodies, the police, medical, security, etc., want to know. And also the organization staff that are responsible for clearing up and dealing with the incident. We need to aid people with the kind of the information they need and the tools and materials they need to clear up the incident. We need to notify people as quickly as possible, and there's often a critical series of events that need to be managed in a sequence to manage the startup and completion of that incident. And fourthly, we need to be able to review the incident. And I'm sure when we speak later, most of this kind of cycle will be familiar to the people that are involved in managing incidents in their organization. So what do Cognify do? This is our business. Bad things happen, we call them incidents, and we provide a portfolio of technology to reduce the time it takes to clear up incidents, whether they're physical, safety, or operational. So we have a number of solution elements to help us do it. One is called Enterprise Incident Management, which is a platform for detecting, recording, and managing an incident. And then we also have a video arm to our business with a kind of broad portfolio of technology to enable the intake of those incidents into our incident management system. The product we use is called Situator. So the solution we use is called Situator. So that's our enterprise incident management system. And it is a system which integrates feeds from many different areas of the organization. It consolidates those feeds. It provides guidance to operators and can review those feeds. As I said earlier on, there is a presentation of the solution at 1:45 today, which I think is on everybody's agenda, but we will run them during the course of the week should anybody be interested. So why do people use Situator? Why do people invest in it? In the management of an incident, every second counts in terms of getting the incident identified and then taken into the organization for dealing with. So what we provide is a customizable workflow basis for people to manage the incident. We provide a great deal of guidance to incident managers, so they can review the incident as a single pane of glass or a single point of truth, and all of the information they need to notify people is at their disposal, and also to help people with their compliance. So many of our customers have their incidents reviewed by external bodies and their executive and health and safety organizations. They need to be able to manage them in a standard way for review purposes, whether they're for internal or external inspection regulation. So major incidents, as we know, can bring operations to a standstill and cause huge disruption. Minor incidents tend to be the thing that people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We have this expression, which is kind of death by 1,000 cuts. Lots and lots of smaller incidents have a huge financial and operational cost to many of the organizations that we're talking to. And the other issue that we have with what we observe with a lot of our customers is that small incidents tend to escalate and multiply if they're not dealt with in a timely fashion. So what does Situator do for our customers? It provides and guides operators and all the relevant field responders in a single way through the process of resolving incidents, and it helps to reduce the time to take that incident on board and deal with it. We need to provide people with a single piece of technology which provides a holistic understanding of an incident. And then how do we deal with the fact that most of our customers have got a multiplicity of legacy systems and current systems for their linear and hierarchical assets, GIS systems, service management systems, crewing and dispatch systems, etc., to provide that. And what Situator is able to do is pull in feeds from all of those systems, in addition to all of the sensor and camera systems, to provide a single interface to operators. We help people with their compliance. So most of our customers operate in highly regulated environments and need to comply with ever-changing standard operating procedures that often need to be guaranteed and occasionally have fines applied to them when they're not. So Situator is able to help with that by defining workflows which support the standard operating procedures and the regulatory requirements. Everything is documented within Situator and can be replicated for audit. So more graphically, what are we trying to do? Traditional approach would be to intake incidents after they arise, notify multiple people, and then go on to manage them. What Situator endeavors to do is intake those incidents far more quickly, notify people simultaneously with all of the relevant information, and manage that incident. Our customers tend to achieve savings of time between 40 and 70%. That may not be right across the board, but to the incidents to which they apply Situator. How is that achieved? Quite simply, better situational awareness, much faster intake of the incident into your incident management system, notifications going out to the right people simultaneously and automated, and then changed should the nature of the incident change or the communication change. And management effort generally is reduced by quite a high degree of automation that's applied to managing that incident. On an ongoing basis, I mentioned earlier on that rail was one of our kind of key focus sectors for investment. So working with Situator, we are looking to provide our customers with ongoing support, best-in-class advice, and the kind of deep knowledge that we have through working with multiple rail and mass transport customers to help you drive greater efficiencies from your investment in Cognify. We work with quite a lot of customers in rail and mass transport, effectively right across the globe, some in the UK, Western Europe, the US, and Asia Pac. We have got lots and lots of references that we can talk to you about subsequently if you want to talk about those. They don't all do the same thing. They don't all concentrate on the same thing. They tend to concentrate what's important to them. So there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution with our customers in rail and mass transport, but they all enjoy huge benefits from their investment in Situator. It's quite interesting listening to the presentation on freight transport earlier on. The claim was made that often in technology investments it's difficult to make because the technology providers don't focus on outcomes. It's entirely the other way around with using technology to manage your incidents. Most of our customers only focus on the outcome and tend to manage their project to deliver those outcomes. So in summary, challenges for rail and public transport to guarantee safety and security are increasing. Traditional incident response is not seen to be sufficient anymore. What can we do to make the organisation deal with its incidents in a much reduced timescale? and we can provide you with some technology to speed up your intake and response processes, reduce the cost and risks associated with an incident, and enable you to have better regulatory compliance. In short, that's what we do. This is our, excuse me, this is our business. I do apologize for my croaky voice. And I will go back to Craig to see if we have some questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark. Excellent presentation there. Great insight into what can be done to improve incident response, and such an important topic. So I think let's move straight on to some questions. So let's take a look. So the first one, how much international reach does Cognify actually have? What can you say about that in terms of, where are you operating, and what's your expansion going to be like over the next few years, perhaps?
Sure. We have a pretty large on-the-ground presence in the US, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East, and in South Africa. Across the rest of Africa and Asia-Pac region, we tend to operate through partners, but we do have customers down there, and competent Cognify qualified SIs operating in those regions.
Fantastic. So some great things on the way for you guys. And so just in terms of incident management yourselves, does Cognify deliver incident management yourselves, or do you operate through partners? Perhaps you can expand a little bit more on that.
Sure. The majority are in the mass transit rail area. Most of the customers we work with are sizable in their nature. It's just by the nature of the organizations. Quite a lot of them have systems integrators that they're already working with, and we tend to work with the preferred systems integrator of our customer. We do have other systems integrators if they haven't got one, but most tend to, and we will occasionally manage the implementations directly, but in the main, we manage the implementations through partners.
Okay, good. And another question here. So in terms of moving more into the rail industry and understanding what your rail customers want, how much can the rail industry learn from your knowledge of other sectors? So perhaps the mass transit industry. How can each other learn from each other to move forward? What do you think?
What I think is that when you boil incidents down, there's a lot of similarities between incidents and how you react to them. There are particular concerns in rail because of the physical nature of the rail network. So incidents in tunnels are different to incidents on bridges, and where tracks are electrified. There are certain parameters of incidents that make them different, but some of the same issues apply to all of them. Which is how quickly can you get your notification awareness into your incident room? How quickly can you intake that incident so you can do something with it? And then how can you notify everybody that's going to be associated with a clear up of that incident in a timely way, a consistent way, so that they can deal with it? And some of that changes from time to time, but the basis of that tends to be very, very similar.
Okay, and training with regards to your product. So how much training is needed for incident managers to really understand how your products work? What is the kind of the processes in training people to use your products?
Very interesting question. So because quite often the incidents in rail are not documented and inconsistent, we often have a generation of incident managers that have been used to doing things in an intuitive way with their systems, often extremely effectively. So there needs to be, as well as some training involved. The training, once an incident is defined and configured, is, I would say, relatively straightforward. The trickier issue around training is the work practice change. So people to use systems in a consistent way, getting familiar with the fact that they don't have to look stuff up, that the information they require is generated for them. Some of the notifications are generated for them. So there is a work practice change associated with it, which generally needs more thought than the actual product training. And we provide that directly, and we provide it in conjunction with our partners.
Okay, good. And what feedback are your customers giving you on your products? Are you able to adapt from customer feedback and apply this to moving forward?
Yes, if we are extremely kind of customer centric with our product development. So the nature of incidents is changing. If there are kind of new incident types that crop up that our customers make us aware of, we will roll those into the standard product if it makes sense, and reflect them back to the sector. That's what people kind of pay us to do, is be a trusted advisor, advise them of best practice. If in another sector or another part of rail or mass transit, they're dealing with things in a more efficient way, the rest of our customers tend to want that information shared with them, and those things built into the product.
Okay, good. So let's have a look at some more questions. Somebody is asking, so this is somebody here, hold on 2 moments. So you mentioned most customers spot incidents first. How are these usually raised? Is there any action towards customers raising incidents on personal devices through text, photos and videos? Perhaps you can explain a little more?
Sure. So I think what I said earlier on is that incidents are notified in a variety of ways, via camera feeds, sensors, door appliances, etc., etc. But increasingly, incidents are notified by members of the public and people like train drivers who are calling in. But members of the public are notifying call centres and providing all sorts of interesting information to particularly rail operators all of the time. It's a double-edged sword in some cases, because it's great that members of the public have got the foresight, and a helpfulness to notify people that there's something going wrong with their infrastructure and something needs to be done about it. Unfortunately, they tend to notify the press and everybody else as well. So there's even more pressure to get that intake of that incident onto your system understood and be dealt with as quick as possible.
Okay. And just one thing that you mentioned within your presentation when you was providing examples of different incidents. For example, graffiti. Now, this is a big problem that's all over the world. Can you explain a little bit more about how your product would be able to help operators understand what's happening, with the graffiti problems that they're having on their networks?
Yeah, sure. In certain cases where you've got rail infrastructure running through, particularly historical sites and things like that, unfortunately, the rail operator has the the responsibility for dealing with the problems of vandalism, whether they're caused by their travelling public or not, and have a KPI to achieve it. What it means is they can detect it quicker with cameras, etc. They can act on it quicker, and they can make sure that they stick to their kind of regulatory compliance with what seems, it's one of those small events, graffiti and vandalism, which may or may not be dangerous. It may be dangerous for the people that are applying the graffiti. It may be dangerous for the rail operator if there's vandalism. but dealing with it, needs to be timely. It needs to be reported on, and it often needs to be included in the kind of KPI mix that rail operators have.
Good. Okay. So I think we've got time for one last question here. You discussed some pretty significant reductions in incident clear-up times.
Yes.
Do you have customers who are already getting those benefits?
Yes. Yes, or I wouldn't have said it. Yeah, we do. And if anybody wants to grab me and to talk about some of those, I think I've got all of my availability online. Very, very happy to talk about those outcome improvements. I mentioned in the presentation that most of our work is driven by kind of outcome improvements. People have particular outcomes they want to improve. They tend to be the kind of pressing ones that they're experiencing, and there are very often very clear KPIs associated with those, so they're fairly easy to measure, which is good. But yeah, very, very happy to talk to people about those, providing there isn't an NDA in place for one of our customers, and come and grab me during the week, please.
Of course. Excellent. Okay, well, thank you, Mark. That's all the time we've got for today. Great to have you on. Excellent presentation. And it's such an important topic, as I said, and it's great to understand how Cognify are helping the industry improve processes. So, and just to mention to the audience again, please do check out our sponsors and exhibitors page on the platform, where you can find out more about Cognify, and also to connect with Mark and the team. So thank you very much, Mark, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Greg. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.